One decision. One decision was enough to begin the downfall of one of history's greatest military commanders. Welcome to Imperium Chronicles. Today we'll uncover why Napoleon invaded Russia and how that single decision changed the course of history forever. By 1812, Napoleon Bonaparte stood as the undisputed ruler of Europe. Under his reign, France had expanded farther than ever before, and much of Europe had either become his ally or bowed to his power. Yet there was still one great empire he had never truly brought to its knees: Russia. Napoleon's goal wasn't simply to expand his borders. He wanted every European nation to enforce the continental system, an economic blockade designed to weaken Britain by cutting off its trade with the continent. But Tsar Alexander I gradually abandoned that policy and resumed trade with Britain. Napoleon saw this as a direct challenge, and so one of the largest military campaigns in history began. Nearly 600,000 soldiers of the Grande Armée, gathered from every corner of Europe, crossed into Russian territory. At the time, the size of this army was almost unimaginable. To many observers, the outcome seemed inevitable. Russia didn't stand a chance. But the Russian commanders had no intention of fighting the battle Napoleon expected. Instead, they retreated. They abandoned their cities, they burned their fields, they destroyed their supply depots, and they left no food behind. Today, this strategy is known as the Scorched Earth policy. Napoleon continued pushing deeper into Russia, but with every passing day, his soldiers grew more exhausted. Supplies became scarcer, and the supply line stretched farther and farther behind them. Months later, the French army finally reached Moscow. But what they found was nothing like they had expected. The city had been almost completely abandoned. Soon after, massive fires began to spread throughout Moscow. To this day, historians still debate exactly how those fires started. But in the end, the result was the same. Napoleon had captured the enemy's capital. Yet the victory he had hoped for never came. Moscow was now under his control. But Tsar Alexander I refused to surrender. He refused to negotiate. Napoleon waited. Days turned into weeks, but the message he was hoping for never arrived. And while he waited, Russia's unforgiving winter was drawing closer. That was the turning point of the campaign. Napoleon knew that if he waited any longer, his army would starve. He had no choice. He ordered the retreat, but by then, it was already too late. Russia's brutal winter had arrived. In many regions, temperatures dropped below -30 degrees Celsius. Most of the soldiers weren't equipped for such extreme conditions. Hunger, disease, freezing cold, constant Russian attacks, and an endless retreat, day after day. Napoleon's once mighty army grew smaller and smaller. The retreat reached its most tragic moment at the Berezina River. Chaos erupted as thousands of exhausted soldiers struggled to cross. Many never made it to the other side. Months earlier, the campaign had begun with hundreds of thousands of soldiers. By the time it was over, only a fraction of them made it back to France. The exact numbers are still debated by historians. But one thing is beyond dispute: the campaign cost Napoleon losses he could never recover from. This defeat changed the balance of power across Europe. For the first time, the man believed to be invincible had been defeated. Soon, one nation after another turned against France. Just a few years later, Napoleon was forced to abdicate. He briefly returned to power, only to suffer his final defeat at Waterloo. The Russian campaign wasn't the only reason for Napoleon's downfall, but many historians consider it the turning point that marked the beginning of the end for his empire. History teaches us one lesson again and again. Great empires don't always fall because of their greatest enemies. Sometimes they fall because of a single wrong decision. Every empire has its rise, and every rise has a turning point that changes history forever. Stay with Imperium Chronicles for more cinematic history documentaries. Until the next story.